Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel and welcome to Oral Communication in Context. Our discussion for today is about formation of meaning for effective communication. Before we start, let us have our objectives. The most essential learning competency explains that a shift in speech context, speech style, speech act, and communicative strategy affects the following: language form, duration of interaction, relationship of speaker, role and responsibilities of the speaker, message, and delivery. By the end of the lesson, you will have been able to critique one's choice of language based on in-depth analysis of several contexts, demonstrate appropriate language form, and explain the factors that affect the listener's formation of meaning. Have you experienced that your speech utterance is misconstrued by your listeners or your message is interpreted in different contexts? Well, these are the common reasons why our message loses its meaning. So let me help you in understanding the complexities of conversations and how form and context change. There is an adage commonly thrown around that says, meanings are in people. This denotes that a word or statement does not have an inherent or fixed meaning. Rather, the meaning depends on the interpretation of the person who hears such a word or statement, and the interpretation depends on the listener's beliefs, previous experiences, and background knowledge. No two persons can have similar beliefs or experiences. In the previous lessons, we have learned that our speech mirrors who we are relating to, our speech styles, speech context, and communicative strategies. When we are asked to speak publicly, the common questions we will ask are the occasion, the type of audience, and purpose. For instance, your teacher finds your research project interesting and he asks you to present your work to his other classes. In this situation, you will find the invitation interesting since it is a rare opportunity for you to speak publicly. But with the type of audience that you have and the occasion, which varies the delivery of the message, you will feel that you can easily connect to the audience and your purpose is simply to inform. Maybe the style of presenting your project to the audience will be based on your own personal preference. Unlike when you are asked to speak to a parent's orientation, where the target audience are the parents who come from different backgrounds, your purpose and the delivery of message are different from the previous situation. So, it is then important to be able to determine the answer to the questions. What will you talk about? Who will be there? And why? Knowing your topic is the essential step to communicate your point of view, while knowing your audience allows you to emphasize certain details or ideas within your topic that is relevant to the audience. And knowing the intent of your speech gives you the motivation to really connect to your audience. Thus, a smooth transition of knowledge can be achieved. Communication, as we have learned, involves the sender and the receiver. The sender communicates the message with the goal of delivering the message clearly, and the receiver who receives it will also have the goal of interpreting the content the way the sender delivers the message. But sometimes it never happens this way. Sometimes the message that you would like to convey is put into a different context. This is often true when you are commenting on your friend's post on Facebook. Your message would come across to some as arrogant and inconsiderate, even though you did not intend it that way. Take the case of President Rodrigo Roa Duterte. The president has supporters and critics. These two groups of people may be looking at the same cup that is either half full or half empty. To the supporters, the cup can be half full, but the critics view it as half empty. Thus, your identity as either a supporter or a critic already determines the kind of meaning you will form. The concept of understanding the message imposes the role of the sender in being mindful of his words and fitting the context of his message to the type of audience he has. Even the delivery of the message and his role as a speaker must also be considered. The same is true to the receiver of the message. He must also consider what form of language the speaker intends to communicate. Does the speaker intend to impose a command? Does he want to show his authority? Whatever the intentions are, it will only show that the message implies a purpose. There are other factors that affect the listener's formation of meaning. The first one is language form. The kind of language used by the speaker is important in establishing a connection with his or her audience. The greater the familiarity of the audience to the language or words used, the better the connection. Hence, the higher chances that the audience thinks or acts according to the speaker's desire. Take a look at this picture. There is a mother and her child, and the mother is telling her child, sige, kung ayaw mo mag-aral, maglaro ka na lang at manood ng TV buong araw. Wala nang aral-aral pa. We usually interpret the above words as sarcasm, as mothers do not encourage spending time on playing and just watching TV all day long, which is derived from the listener's experience. The listener may interpret this otherwise if there is a change in tone and intonation when the above words are uttered. Interpretation also differs depending on who uttered the above words. If it were a friend or colleague, then it can be interpreted differently. Bygate explains that limitations in understanding of the text or message can be a reason for conflict and misunderstanding. He emphasized that often we think that we sent a message in a complete and self-sufficient way, so we assume we are perfectly understood by our intended listeners, only to realize later that we are not. As a result, we could come across as arrogant, mean, and obscure because our message lacks explicitness. We must leave our listeners with something to work on or to interpret the message based on the context it entails the listener to process. That is why Bygate presents the three kinds of sentence meanings to help listeners understand the forms and structure. Communicative function. It deals with the ability of the host to use the punctuations properly, such as how interrogatives are formed, how to complain, ask, and apologize. Specific meaning speaks about how the host used the language to deliver his ideas and opinions. Social context refers to the manner of conversing, whether it be making connections or exchanging ideas. Next is duration of interaction. Duration or time factor is crucial in sustaining the interaction between the speaker and the listener. If the listener is a supporter of the speaker, then the former has high chances of staying until the latter finishes the message delivery. But if the listener is a critic, he or she may not have the patience to stay until the end. As such, the duration of interaction can then affect the formation of meaning. Critic leaves midway of the interaction, then the meaning can be distorted. Keep your message simple, brief, precise, and determine only the important points and give examples for each point. Relationship of speaker. The nature of the relationship between the speaker and the listener determines the kind of interaction would transpire. The closer the relationship, the better is the exchange of information. Now let's observe the dialogues. The first conversation between the teacher and student. So the teacher asked, Donnie, is it true that you took Arthur's lunch money and threw his books at the rubbish bin? Ah, no, ma'am. That's not true. Besides, Arthur and I were having fun, right, Arthur? Yes, ma'am. Donnie and I were just goofing around. And conversation between Donnie and his friends. Hey, Donnie! Is it true that you took Arthur's money and books? Yeah, you should have seen the look on his face when I threw his books into the bin. And when our teacher asked about it, I made sure Arthur would not snitch on me. The third conversation is between Arthur and his friends. Arthur, I heard what happened between Donnie and you. Is it true? Yeah, it is. I'm sorry about that. I wish I were there to help you out. Yes. Thank you, though, for caring. The examples emphasize that there is a need to build a deeper relationship between the teacher or the speaker and the students or the receiver so that students can be more trusting of the teachers. For effective communication to happen, trust is vital. Once the audience trusts that a speaker is reliable or an expert of the said topic or is someone they know to be trustworthy, the flow of communication becomes smoother. Role of the speaker. The speaker's purpose in an interaction allows the listener to assess whether the exchange of information is worthwhile or otherwise. It turned out abstruse, which was disappointing, which best relates to abstruse. A. Very interesting. B. Hard to deny. C. Difficult to understand. D. Very clear. Number 2. Which word means acumen? He had the acumen to handle any kind of situation with ease. A. Shyness. B. Shrewdness. C. Eagerness. D. Style. If you know the answer, comment your answer down below. But don't forget to write your name in answering. And that ends the discussion of the formation